Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 697. Today we're going to talk about Frostgrave 2nd Edition. Now if you're watching this video in real time, this is the second video of Skirmish Week, which will end tomorrow with the top 10, my favorite top 10 skirmish games of all time. Now I've already reviewed Frostgrave, the 1st edition, a few years ago now. So I will put a link to that original review because I'm not going to get into all the mechanics and everything which I covered in the first video. But what I've done is I've gone through this whole book here and compiled all the changes and differences. So I'm going to kind of do a pretty abbreviated flip through, but I've made notes for everything. So I'm going to give you kind of a sense of what's changed and why you might want to pick this up over 1st edition if you already have 1st edition. I mean, spoiler, if you don't have 1st edition and you want to get into it, just get this one because it is backwards compatible with all of the expansions and supplements and things. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that here, and I'll kind of give you my general thoughts of it. I've not actually had a chance to play any of games with 2nd edition, but the core mechanics and things are exactly the same. The spells and stuff have been tweaked. A few of them have been tweaked more significantly than others, but all of the changes here are really focused around campaigns and building your warband and that kind of stuff. So I'll talk more in specifics about that. But as far as the game mechanics, my opinion would not have changed on that. And from what I can see of what the changes are here, I don't see how they can't be good. So let's walk through all of the changes between 1st and 2nd edition in this book, and then I'll give you some general thoughts. Okay, so here is the cover to Frostgrave 2nd Edition. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Like I said, I'll have a link to my original video if you're not familiar with this game and you're interested in it. But I'm just going to go over the differences here. So let's jump to the first major difference. And this here is the soldiers section. So of course, you're going to have apprentices and wizards and whatnot. And the soldiers here work out a little bit differently here. So you can see some of these soldiers are in fact free. So the thug and the thief are free. So you can easily retake them in future games after, they've been inevitably killed. And this concept here applies to other soldiers that might have been mentioned in the expansion. So what this does, just kind of skipping ahead, if we go back here, you can see there's an appendix here that mentions changes to all of the Frostgrave supplements that have come out. Because again, this is backwards compatible with all of the existing expansions. And so if you look here, it tells you what the various different soldier types, whether or not they're standard or specialist in that rule book. So then you know kind of how to treat them once you start to add them to your 2nd edition games. And then one thing is that apprentices have been made slightly better. And then the stats here are just slightly tweaked, and also it's only 100 gold to re-recruit an apprentice if they die, which I believe it was 200 before. So it's just a couple small changes. It just kind of makes building your warband that much easier and maintaining your warband that much better through the course of a campaign. Because if you're getting trounced on, you can still kind of fill out and flesh out your warband so you're not, understaffed, so to speak. And there's a couple other things I just want to make a note of before I get to really the key point, which is why I think this is a must buy. So let's talk about a couple of minor points first. And these are small points, but I think they're worth noting. So for example, you've got this box here. Now typically a game of Frostgrave should be 4x4, even 3x3 size table. But if you have a small table, you don't have much room, or you're trying to do, maybe multiple games at once, you can try the 2x2, and it just tells you about deploying the corners and how to kind of shift deploying objectives. So this is cool. I mean, this is handy because if you wanted to have a game day or something at your house or at the store and you wanted multiple people there and space was an issue, this is a nice little pointer or tip to help you kind of get up and get rolling and know that, hey, we can do this as a 2x2 game. And another little small example, I've caught a couple of these things here, like just kind of comparing the differences in the rules explanations from this edition to the 1st edition. And there is more kind of clarifications and things sort of baked in. It's almost like they baked in the FAQ. So for example, movement by spell, these spells may be used to move a figure out of combat. Well, that wasn't clear in the 1st rulebook. And so they've kind of baked in stuff like that into the book, which is, I think, very important. Especially for new players, when there's questions, they can come here and then easily get to maybe hopefully some of the answers that they might need. Now let's get into some of what I think are the really cool changes. Now this first one is also an optional rule, but I really like this optional rule. So this one here, this is in the buying and selling basically after a scenario is played. This is optional rule, black market contacts. And I like this because it kind of reminds me of some rules that are in the Necromunda books, which I really like. Because in the old game, or without this optional rule, if you had enough money, you could go just buy the new spells, which is really the key to the game, is unlocking all the new spells for your wizard to kind of either get to the level of transcendence or, you know, just make you that much better and have that many tools in your toolbox. Well, it seems silly that some of these, you know, spells should be a little bit more rare, harder to find, because, you know, during the course of the scenario you find a grimoire scroll and you've got to roll to see what it is, which could be random, it could be useful, it could be something that, you know, over the course of your campaign that you guys just can't find. So instead of just being able to go like, oh, I got enough gold, I can just buy whatever I want, this kind of it gives you a way to kind of set up the market in terms of buying the magic items and things. So what may or may not be in the market at that time when you're kind of in between scenarios. Just a cool little thing and way to do that. Now, the next one is also optional, but I like this because one of the issues that a lot of these games frankly don't address is the level imbalance between your warband versus the other warband. Because invariably somebody's not going to do as well during the course of a campaign, somebody's going to do better. So there's going to be a level difference there. So to do this, it kind of adds a random encounter that the lower level player can then control as if they're part of their warband, which just adds kind of a fun, interesting sort of, you know, narrative little twist to the scenario, and it gives you some kind of degree to start to balance it out. So the level differences are pretty far apart, but there's no reason you couldn't maybe tweak those a little bit, kind of depending on your game group's needs there. But I like this kind of, at least this is in here and being addressed. Now the next thing, which is not optional, which is the thing I really like, is how we kind of award experience out of the gate. And I believe some of this stuff was added in kind of after the fact, from the first edition book through one of the expansions, I'm not sure which. But a wizard can earn a maximum of 300 experience points per game. You now get the +5 experience for failing to cast a spell. So you still get the 10 for successfully casting, but even if you fail, you still get 5, which is cool because it is a D20 game. So you should get some kind of benefit or some kind of mitigation if you've got terrible luck with that. Let's see, you also get a maximum of 50 points per game for uncontrolled creatures killed. And then you don't get any experience points if the spell's super easy and stuff like that. So just a couple little tweaks here to, again, sort of try to bring the balance into some kind of better, you know, way to mitigate some bad luck. So that I like, this kind of stuff I really like. But finally, the main changes here, which is probably where your money's going to go, in addition to those tweaks, is you have 10 brand new scenarios, and I believe the existing scenarios have been tweaked, although I couldn't tell you. But I believe the existing 10 scenarios that were in the original edition are tweaked, and you've got 10 more scenarios. So you got 20 right out of the gate here, and that's without any expansions or anything. And of course, you have a lot of the spells have been touched and tweaked a little bit. You've got the cards here in the back that you could scan in, but these are available on the Osprey website. I'll put a link to their page where you can download the files to kind of print some of the stuff out. Like these spell cards, I definitely would print those out. And then they'll have like this is your little warband roster thing there, which is largely unchanged, I believe. And then you have a kind of a different player aid than the original, and I like this a little bit better. It takes up a couple more pages, but I think this is a little bit more clarifying. And then this is on the Osprey site too, so this is good. This really breaks down all the phases of the game in a very easy, because you could really just, you know, learn the rules and teach it through this. And the game is super dead simple to play once you kind of get rolling and stuff, and it's very easy to get into the fun of it. And all the phases are broken down very nicely. But that's really it as far as the changes. You know, real minor stuff, but some of those more optional changes are really cool, and just kind of the ease of warband building and everything. And you get, again, the extra scenarios. All the spells are tweaked. Because, you know, there were some spells that would get ignored, you know, if you started to get really competitive with it. So there's been a good pass on those. Okay, so that's just kind of an overview of the changes between first and second edition. As far as my final thoughts on this, like I said at the beginning, I haven't had a chance to play any second edition games. mostly because I'm in lockdown, but you know, I just want to kind of go over the changes. The core mechanics haven't changed, so my opinion's not really going to change. All of the changes that I just outlined to you, I think, are across the board improvements to the game. I don't see how they could be bad. Honestly, I don't see how they are bad at all. They're great. So if you haven't seen my original review, go back and watch it. This is one of my top games of all time. Tomorrow I'm doing the top 10 skirmish games on my top 10 skirmish game list. So you can maybe imagine where it shows up on the list. Spoiler, but yeah, I definitely recommend this game. Definitely watch you know, my old review if you're not familiar with it. If you're still watching this video, I don't know why you would be, but or take a look at the Gorilla Miniature Games. It's a YouTube channel, and he has, I don't know, like 100 Frostgrave battle reports to give you kind of a sense of playing through it. But yeah, I definitely recommend Frostgrave, and I don't know what else to say. It's great. I will leave you with this if you're just kind of still watching and hanging on, but it's one of those that is like, it's really, to me, sort of set itself apart from all these other kind of skirmish games, because the world that it's created out of this is really a living, breathing kind of world. Just the setting of it, you know, it's in a winter wasteland. You know, there's not any of these other fantasy games that are set in a winter land. That's just like, you know, basically the dark ice age of the world, which is now sort of thawing. You know, that setting is a very unique setting, and it's all wizards, right? And it's just these grubby, greedy wizards, and you know, that are accompanied by these scumbags, you know, the soldiers that are just there for hire and want some money out of this thing. And so everybody's just kind of fleeing to this, you know, like gold rush of spells that are coming out. And that's such a unique kind of setting that it just really sets itself apart from a lot of these other games. And the whole D20 system just adds to the whimsy and everything. I think I talked about a lot of this in my reviews and some of my top 100 or top 50 games of all time kind of thing. But it's really unique, in a way, kind of intimate setting where you can kind of get into it and invest yourself in it, and where there's not really a lot of told to you about what happens. I mean, there is some narrative literature and things like that, but this really kind of, the way it's presented is a game. It's not a universe that you've got to go read all the novels and stuff for. It's a universe that is there for you to create. So that's really what kind of sets this apart in a lot of ways. So I know that's kind of nebulous, sort of gushy, touchy-feely stuff, but that's what sets it apart in a lot of ways, among other things. But anyway, take a look at this. Go watch my other review. Thanks.